Alright, this is our third and final video on living in depression. This is too little too late. Alright? Hoover decides to act, but what happens and then leading into the election of 1932. Now, Hoover does start something called the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. This was an organization designed to bail out banks and businesses, again, because trickle-down economics said this business at the top would trickle down, so we want everybody up at the top so that they will help. So, as the cartoon is kind of poking fun at, these guys really didn't take into consideration a whole lot of things. That basically, if you needed money, they would give you money, and you could kind of move from there. So what is a bailout? A bailout is basically when somebody is about to hit bankruptcy or foreclosure, and the government steps in and offers them a loan so that they can get back on their feet. In 2008, President Obama famously bailed out two big automobile companies, Chrysler and General Motors, two of the big three, Ford being the third, and then also AIG, an insurance agency, to get these companies back on their feet and kind of move. Now, at the same time, there was a dam project. It was called the Boulder. Some people call it the Hoover Dam Project. It's basically the same thing. This was basically a large dam. It's been, if you've seen the Transformers, it's where they fight in the first one. But it's a large hydroelectric dam that sends water and irrigation and electricity to a lot of places in this arid west. Now, why they name it Hoover Dam? We have the tradition of naming things for the president who started the big program. Okay, and so that's why it's called the Hoover Dam. It was actually completed much after he was gone, but there it is. Now, if there's two reasons Hoover doesn't win, number one is the Depression. Number two is the Veteran Bonus Army March. One of the stipulations for veterans of World War I is that they would get a cash bonus. In 1940-something, year escapes me. Now, fast forward, we're in 1931, 1932. They want it now because they're starving. So they march to Washington and they camp out on congressional steps, basically outside of Congress, to get them to pass this, okay? Now, Hoover's really upset by this, and he actually orders that the Army go and remove the former Army. So he sicks the Army on the Army. I know that seems weird, but the whole idea was to end the Hooverville, get these people off. Now, some very famous figures are in this Army getting rid of the veterans. We have Douglas MacArthur, who is going to be a major player later on. We have General Eisenhower, who's not only a general, but also a president, as well as General Patton. So these three men are part of this kind of new wave of Army. Now, in the midst of getting rid of the shanty towns and things like that, tear gas is exposed and a child is killed. And so naturally, Hoover's seen as a baby killer, etc. And this is why, in 1932, this is what the electoral map looks like. Hoover got stomped. Okay? Franklin Delano Roosevelt will become our new president. And he's actually very interesting because he's the only president we've had to serve more than 2 terms. He's the reason we have an amendment to prevent this from happening. And in some historical circles, some would say he's the closest we've had to an American dictator ever. And so the next little unit here on the New Deal is going to be all about him. Remember, he's still in the Depression, so it kind of ties with that, but it's a little somewhat different, all right? But that is it for living in the Depression.